6:36. We check back in now with Mike Eppel and more on U.S. President Donald Trump's promise to put these tariffs on certain goods. Tell us how it's affecting the markets, because right now we know that it is already.
It's going over like a ton of bricks, Tammy. I'll tell you, this morning we're looking at the Dow futures down 200 points. The Dow was down 420 yesterday. It's seen 3 consecutive losses of more than 1% coming into the Friday trading session. And you just showed that Twitter quote from the U.S. president this morning. And I think the key 2 words in that are the talk of a certain country, $100 billion trade differential between the U.S. and a certain country, and that looks to be hinting at China specifically in this trade dispute. But, you know, you've also got the implications currently with the NAFTA negotiations ongoing. Canada's a big buyer of U.S. steel. We obviously have reciprocal trade through Stelco and other producers. But where does this go? It's the uncertainty at this point. Which countries, which companies specifically, and what would be the reaction from China, for example, if there's a 25% import tariff on steel coming out of China, which is one of the global producers here, the biggest. And there's been this is not something specifically new. Trump hinted at this during the election campaign because there's been a big pushback, actually, about the importation of Chinese steel into the United States by those companies specifically affected. So this has got a lot of legs, likely, but it's the uncertainty in the near term that is taking the global markets specifically lower this morning. Looks to be a sell-off at the start of today's trade. Also interesting development in the U.S. political spectrum this morning regarding the ongoing talk about U.S. gun control in the wake of the Parkland, Florida shooting. And one of the biggest gun producers, American outdoor brands, which make Smith & Wesson, warned last night of slumping U.S. gun sales. And that's sort of the inverse of what we've seen previously, where Americans typically have purchased more guns on the fear of a U.S. crackdown on gun ownership. So that stock of American outdoor brands down sharply this morning by as much as 13%. So again, we've seen this change, this wave potentially out of corporate America in reaction to the latest mass shooting in the United States, and maybe, just maybe, a change in attitude. We'll send it back to the studio.
Interesting too, as I was looking at some lists this morning, Mike, and China is actually like the 11 on the list of who exports steel into the U.S. or from where the U.S. imports. Canada #1, and then a lot of arguments going on. Well, it looks like Trump himself and all his buildings bought nothing but Chinese steel
because it's cheap. Yeah, it is less expensive. And then you bring in the trade, the fact that, you know, American buyers of Canadian steel already get a 25% discount because of the currency exchange, and they've been, you know, targeting the Chinese exchange rate mechanism. So does that play into this? And again, which country is the main target? If it is China, that really ramps things up globally, more so than it's Canada, obviously, Kevin. But can they just be specific? You know, that's the unknown right now.
I think it's a case, again, of Trump just spouting off and saying something against his advisors. We saw the stock market take a big tumble yesterday. See what happens at the open.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting day.